Today's episode of the Press Box Podcast, episode number 27, is brought to you by Bonus Room Art, which you'll hear more about later, as always. And today we will get into some NFL talk first and foremost. Talk a little bit about the Giants-Eagles game last night, as well as talking about some other Week 6 matchups, and also finishing with what we think the playoffs might look like here early on in the season after we played a little more than a quarter of the season. In the second half of the podcast, we'll talk about a new YouTube series that has debuted recently called Mascots and Monikers. We'll talk to Nathan Miranda, our producer and creator of the series, about what went into making that, some of his tricks of the trade as he makes the episodes, as well as what fans can expect when they go on there and watch those episodes, which should be really great as well and entertaining. So stay with us. Right after this intro music, we will get into the episode on the Press Box Podcast. So we're going to talk, like we said, talk football primarily on this episode. So let's start with the action last night
in the Meadowlands.
In the Meadowlands, Eagles at Giants. A game that didn't turn out well for the Giants, as everybody knows now. But the thing that struck me watching the game was just how hopeless the Giants looked, especially on offense. It just felt like every time Manning dropped back to pass, they had no chance. He just felt like they had no chance of getting a first down, making a solid completion. Barkley was the lone bright spot. Obviously, he caught balls out of the backfield, had runs that looked great, and he looks like a really nice piece. And it's starting to validate the fact that they took him second overall instead of another quarterback potentially. So my takeaway was Barkley looks excellent, but other than that, the Giants are obviously in trouble at 1-5, and at this point, They're in line for another top 3 to 5 pick. It looks like if they can just keep it up and not screw up and win 5 and 6 games late in the season. But you're the Giants aficionado, so I'll let you go and give your take as well.
Yeah. Well, where do I start? I mean, it's going to take me a while to get through all of my feelings here, but first of all, I still think taking Saquon Barkley was a good decision, and the reason I say that is because, let's say you would have taken one of these quarterbacks, Darnold, Rosen, Josh Allen, or Baker Mayfield, okay? Either he was going to be sitting behind Eli Manning and you'd be the same team, or you're going to throw him to the Wolves right away, and given that offensive line, it would have been no better. I mean, he might have been able to roll out and run around a little bit, but he's still going to get killed. I mean, he's still going to take punishment, all right? Kind of like the David Carr fiasco in 2002 when the Texans started up. Okay, and that ruins a young quarterback. So either way, the Giants were going to be what they are regardless. So I think taking Saquon Barkley was a good move. I think where the Giants messed up goes back to last year. I mean, I think it was early on in last year when Ben McAdoo and the Giants general manager at that time, Jerry Reese, realized that Eli Manning was starting to get to the end of his career. I mean, Jerry Reese, the general manager, said that Eli was on the back nine of his career. All right, so they hatched a plan with the ownership of the Giants to say, look, we've got to find out if some of these young quarterbacks we have are the right guys to take over, or if we need to go in a different direction. And the ownership bought into that. Well, then all of a sudden they decide to make the decision to replace him. They screwed up in 2 areas. One, the way they handled it. All right. You don't replace Eli Manning with Geno Smith, all right? Geno Smith is not the future of the Giants. Yeah. They should have put Davis Webb in there, the guy that they had drafted the year before, okay, to see what he had. And the second thing they didn't anticipate was the reaction of the Giant fans and Eli's reaction to it. So the ownership backtracked. They fired McAdoo and Reese, which I thought were the right decisions, and committed to Eli. Well, that was a mistake, all right? And we're seeing that now. So the Giants have some nice offensive weapons, but they don't have a quarterback that can get him the ball because teams are pressuring him so much, and they're running these stunts with their defensive linemen, and the Giants' offensive line can't pick it up for whatever reason. So Manning has no time. He's not going to stand in the pocket and take the hit. He's afraid to do that, so he dumps it off. So you have receivers that are either catching short routes or you got to dump it to your running back. He can seem to throw the ball against cover 2, all right, and because he doesn't take the time to wait for the routes to develop. So, the Giants are a mess right now. Their defense is really not much better. I mean, granted, their offense has put them in difficult positions, but their defense can't seem to close out games when they have a chance to. So, yeah, you're right. I think the Giants, their schedule does get easier, okay, if you want to call it that, based on who they have to play the last half of the season. But I just don't see them winning. They might win 4 games if they get really, really lucky. But I think they're looking at a 2-14 or 3-13 season, which, as you said, is going to give them another top pick. Yeah. I mean, probably the 2 or 3 pick again.
Right.
So, I mean, and then you take Odell Beckham. I mean, the guy is I know you've got some thoughts on this. I'll let you chime in here in a minute. But, he's a great talent when things are going well. But he's a pain in the butt, all right, when they're not. If it was me, I would trade the guy after this season and pick up another first-round pick. Now you got 2 first-round picks next year. That will really help you build that team.
Yeah, I agree with that. In the past, I've always felt like he was good enough to put up with, but just after seeing his act lately, I'm starting to go the other way. Like you said, when things are going well, and he's getting his catches and yards and stats. I think when both things are when they're losing and he's not getting catches or producing, then it's the worst, like you saw last night.
Right.
And I think if they would have lost last night like they did, but he would have had 8 catches for 150 yards, he would have been okay with that.
Right.
He may have not really acted okay with the loss, but ultimately he would have been okay with that. He just wants the ball, obviously, like most receivers do. But
sure.
I like the idea of trading him too. I mean, why his value is pretty high right now. I think you could probably get a first-round pick. I don't know if that's guaranteed, but somebody out there is probably going to give you that. I don't know.
Well, they would. I
think they would. He just signed the new contract, so he's pretty much locked in there. So whoever's getting him doesn't have to worry about a holdout or anything like that.
Right.
He's just 1 year into that deal, so I think they're good in that respect. And then just try to build around Barkley. I mean, I think. What we talked about is, and I like your kind of plan for their future is basically let Manning know that they're moving on, not necessarily right now, but bring him back next year. But in the meantime, use next year's draft to get a quarterback. Let him sit a year behind Manning.
Right.
You said if they talk to Manning and he's not okay with that idea, well, maybe you let him go this year,
right,
and bring in a 1-year veteran stopgap next year, like I don't know, Josh McCown maybe available,
yeah, like a Case Keenum type guy, yeah, right,
somebody like that,
right,
who can play for a year,
right,
and then you try to groom that. I don't know who's available in the draft next year at quarterback right off the top of my head now, but I think. This may be a lost season record-wise for them, but they did make the right move. I mean,
yes.
I think Barkley last year was better at his position than any of the quarterbacks were at their position. So I think if you look at it this coming year, you're not going to get a Barkley coming out in the draft again.
Right.
But there's going to be 2 or 3 quarterbacks that are viewed by scouts as franchise quarterbacks. So maybe you take a chance on one of those guys. I don't know.
Well, the only issue with a Saquon Barkley, especially taking him given the current makeup of the Giants team, is you remember Rocky III when Duke, the trainer, and Apollo were talking. He goes, "You think we got a chance?" And Apollo said, "At the pace we got to set, Rock's going to last maybe 6-7 rounds." All right, Barkley. I mean, look at Adrian Peterson. He was great for 5 or 6 years. Then the beating they take. I mean, when he carries the ball that much. So what I'm trying to say is, Barkley's going to be great for 5 or 6 years, and then he's going to hit the wall. That's just the nature of running backs.
Peterson hasn't hit the wall yet.
Well, come on. You know what I'm trying to say. I mean, Adrian Peterson doesn't run today like he did in 2007 through 2012, okay? My point is, it was the right decision, but you got to strike while the iron's hot. They got to get this team turned around while they have a Saquon Barkley who can catch it 9 times out of the backfield, who can run it 20 times for 175 yards, because now's the time, all right? And I agree with your assessment 100%. I mean, they have got to either get with Eli and say, look, we're drafting your replacement, and you're going to groom him next year, and that's it. And then you're going to retire as a Giant. We're going to give you a great send-off. We're going all that wonderful stuff. If not, you got to cut him at the end of this year, eat the $7 million in cap space, send him on his way, and as you said, bring in a veteran replacement for 1 year and draft the future of the team and go from there. Because the way it's currently constructed, it's just not working. Yeah. I mean, it's just not working. And you better do something about that offensive line. I mean, they brought Nate Solder over from the Patriots. They drafted a couple guys, but it's still not performing the way that it should.
Well, let's put this scenario out there. Let's say they get their top 5 pick, record-wise, and through some other way, maybe they trade Beckham or somebody else, they get another first-round pick.
Okay.
Not who specifically, but what position are you going after that second pick, assuming they take the quarterback at the highest pick? Where do they need the second most help if they're going to use a first-round pick?
Well, I mean, they need the second most. They need the offensive lineman. Okay. I mean, that's what they need to me more than anything else. Because regardless of who you bring in a quarterback, whether it's a veteran replacement, a rookie, or Eli Manning, you got to protect them. Now, if we talked about this as well in today's NFL, with the way teams rush the passer, you got to have a quarterback that's more mobile. If you had a guy like a Carson Wentz or a guy that can get out of the pocket and make throws, yeah, maybe you can get along with your offensive line until they gel a little bit. Mm-hmm. But right now you can't. But other than that, I mean, they need another corner. They need another safety. I mean, you got Landon Collins. He's an All-Pro. You got Janoris Jenkins, who's an All-Pro. But you got to have another corner and another safety, and you need another linebacker, and you need some more defensive linemen. I mean, they still need a lot of players. I mean, It's not all Eli's fault. I mean, we're talking like that. The media's talking like that. But if you put Carson Wentz on that team right now, I asked you this question this morning, and you said, no, I don't think they'd be that much better. And you're right. Yeah, if you just put Carson Wentz as quarterback on that team, or pick any great quarterback, they may not be 1-5, but I bet you they'd be 3-4.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not going to make the team a playoff team. There's a lot of things they need.
Right. I mean, to reverse that, I think that if you took Eli Manning and put him in with the Eagles or somebody like that, they're not going to take a dive. I mean, he's not right. He's still a good quarterback.
Yes.
I mean, he's not but him taking a step back and play along with what the Giants have are making it what it is right now.
Look, you're exactly right. Here's your analogy. Take Eli Manning and put him behind the Cowboys offensive line, and the Cowboys wouldn't be 2-4.
I agree.
They would be 4-2.
He's better than Dak Prescott.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the analogy. Yeah. So that's what says it's not all him, right. But he is at the end of his career. Yeah. And I mean, and if you're going to have a team in flux with an offensive line like they have, you got to move to the quarterback that can handle that situation. You know what I mean? Yeah. In fact, the best thing would be Cowboys trade Prescott for Manning. I mean, Prescott behind the Giants line would be better, and Manning would be better behind the Cowboys line.
Yeah.
But that's the Giants situation. So
we'll see what happens with
yes,
the Giants.
We will. Yes, we will. At least this frees me up to use all my emotional capital for other things, right?
Like Notre Dame.
Like Notre Dame. Right. That's right.
So taking a look at some of this weekend's NFL matchups, the big one is Kansas City and New England.
Yes.
Last time we saw them was last year, Week 1, and Kansas City pulled away at the end of the game and basically not blew them out, but won handily if you look at the scoreboard. I don't see Kansas City winning that game. It's in New England. I think that people are getting a little overhyped on Mahomes, and I think that at the end of the day, you can look at it and be like, "Yeah, the Patriots beat him." Like, what did we expect? I think the Chiefs they're different in the aspect that the last few seasons when they started off hot with Alex Smith, you knew that they can do whatever they want, and that they're going to do nothing in the playoffs, which they've proven.
Right.
I think this year's Chiefs team offers a little bit more optimism where you're like, I don't know, really, maybe they do have something in the playoffs because we haven't seen Mahomes, and they're a little more exciting, whereas you pretty much knew what you were getting with Alex Smith.
Right.
I don't think they're going to do anything in the playoffs. I think that there's a chance for them to, just because it's a little more unknown. But this weekend, I think they lose to the Patriots, and we're just like, yeah, that's pretty much what we thought was going to happen.
Well, I would agree with that. And I think, though, this weekend you'll have a really good idea of how good of a quarterback Patrick Mahomes is, because the Patriots can make a quarterback look pretty bad, and we'll see how he does. I mean, even if they lose, if he goes in there and he throws one touchdown pass, no interceptions, but moves the team around. I mean, I think that's what you're looking for from him. And the problem with this game for the Chiefs is, the Patriots have already lost a couple games though, so it's really not that big of an issue. But you don't want to lose to the Patriots and then lose another game down the road. And if you have to play them in the playoffs, you're going to have to play them in New England, and that's the thing you don't want to have happen. New England is still a game behind Miami. New England's going to win the East. They're going to be a division winner.
Yeah.
So the question is, where do you want to play them late in the season? And I agree with you. I think in New England right now, with Edelman back and with Josh Gordon coming on a little bit.
Touchdown last week. Yeah.
He did, right? I think the Patriots are going to win, and I think they're going to continue to win. I don't really see anybody in the AFC outside of maybe the Jaguars that can beat them on a regular basis. The Ravens, and I mean that's a team that we have to watch for when it comes to the Patriots, because the Ravens right now are playing very good football, and more than likely they're going to win that North Division. I think they're a game behind Cincinnati right now, but it really doesn't matter. I mean, Cincinnati is a September team. They're not an October and November, December team. So the Ravens have proven they can beat the Patriots. They've got a solid defense. They got a coach and a quarterback that know how to do it. So outside of them in Jacksonville, I don't see anybody beating the Patriots.
Yeah,
in that conference.
Ravens are 3-2.
Right.
Bengals are 4-1, but the Bengals are what the Chiefs were last year. Bengals will go 15-1. They're going to get bounced pretty quick in the playoffs.
The Bengals, and they're not going to beat the Steelers this week. I bet you. So, yeah.
Yeah. I agree with what you said. I think that. Let me see here. Yes, okay. The Jaguars are 3-2 along with the Titans.
Right.
Yeah, they've I guess struggled a little bit here in the first 5 weeks, but they'll be there at the end of the year. I think their defensive talent. And,
the Jaguars have the same problem the Giants have, only it's a way more immediate problem.
Yeah.
Okay? They have all the pieces, but they don't have the quarterback.
Right.
I mean, and Bortles, the interesting thing about Bortles is he's the mirror image of Eli. He makes more plays with his legs getting out of the pocket, but he can't throw the football with any kind of accuracy. Yeah. Eli can throw it great if he would just, if you give him protection, but he can't move. Right. So the Jaguars are going to be facing that situation is that, Bortles could hurt them enough where they end up with the 4th seed and then have to go on the road quite a bit. Yeah. So that's going to be a dangerous situation for them, but they're pretty good.
All right. So, we're through 5 weeks, a little more than a quarter way. Let's go through these divisions here and see what we think about what the playoffs would look like projecting forward. I think if you start in the AFC West, we're just talking about the Chiefs. Do you think they win that division?
Yes. I don't see who's going to beat them. Really.
I mean, maybe the Chargers. I feel like more of a wild card if they get in.
Let me. If the Chargers were going to beat the Chiefs, it would have been week 1.
Oh, yeah.
Right, with the new quarterback and everything. Yeah.
The North, you have the Bengals at 4-1, Ravens 3-2, other two teams at 2-1.
Right.
I think that's a toss-up between Ravens and Bengals. I think the Bengals can win the division.
Yes.
And you may get 2 playoff teams out of that division. I don't know, what do you think?
Well, I think the question there is going to be: are the Steelers on a downslide?
I think they are.
Or are they starting to hit their stride? Because the Ravens have already beaten them once. If the Ravens beat them again, all right, then that puts the Steelers pretty much out of the division.
Yeah.
And we'll find out what the Bengals do against them this week. But I agree with you. I think the Ravens, to me, are the inside favorite to win that division.
I think that's a 2 playoff team division.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the West is a 1 playoff team division.
East. I mean, the Patriots and Dolphins are both 3-2, but the Patriots are going to win that division.
Yeah, well, the Dolphins had a big lead last week against. Was it the Bengals they were playing, or the Raiders?
They played the Bengals most recently.
That's right. Yeah. So they had a big lead. Remember, 17-0, and they blew it.
Right.
The Dolphins are posers. They're not even going to make the playoffs. That's a 1-team playoff division.
Going to end up in the South.
That's the 2 team. That's the other 2 teams.
You think so?
Yeah.
So let's say the Jaguars win the division.
I think the Jaguars win the division.
Think the Titans get in?
I think the Titans get in. Yeah. I think the Texans are not any good.
I agree.
And even though now they're what 2-4, 2-3, and the Colts
they're 1-4.
Yeah, they're
I think that if you say 2 teams are coming out of the North, I think that I like the Chargers to get in more than the Titans. If you're talking about that last spot.
Do you really?
I just think Phillip Rivers is better than Mariota, and I think the Titans, the way they squeeze some of these wins out, and then they go and lose to Buffalo, like what was it, 13-12?
Yeah.
It's like if you're a playoff team, you go and you win that game, and you're 4-1 now.
Yeah,
I don't
you're
know.
right. You're right.
They just don't impress me.
You're right. I mean, but the reason they don't impress you is because they're kind of an old school team. They don't do anything flashy. They run the ball really well. They beat the Eagles 16-9 or
That's
something.
fine.
You know
That's
what I mean?
fine.
No, I know, but I'm just saying. I still think they're pretty solid, and I think Rivers is a way better quarterback than Mariota, but I don't think he has the team around him.
Yeah.
Whereas Mariota, if you give him the keys to the team and you say, here, just don't screw it up. Just keep it in the middle of the lane, Whereas Rivers is the guy that's got to drive on the sidewalk, go 80 miles an hour to pass somebody. He's got to really make things happen, and he can't really do that because he doesn't have the pieces.
All right, so let's look at the NFC here. NFC West, Rams, they're 5-0.
The Rams are going to win that division, and I don't think anybody else is going to make the playoffs.
I think that's one playoff team there. South, okay, I think you're getting 2 from there.
I agree.
Saints are 4-1. Panthers are 3-1.
Right.
Bucks are 2-2. I don't think they're going to do anything.
No. It'll be the Panthers and the Saints out of that division.
I think that the Bucks started hot. I think it's the right move to actually put Jameis back in at this point, and then just see basically decide in these last few games if you're going to move forward with him. Because if he looks average to below average, you get rid of him, and if he somehow turns it on and looks great, then maybe you give him another year. I don't know.
I agree with you there.
But I think the Saints and Panthers both get in somehow. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that. Yeah. And going real quick on the Buccaneers, if the Giants choose the second scenario, I'd bring in Fitzpatrick as the guy for next year. He'd be great for 1 year.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be good. Okay, which brings us to the North. Do you think the Bears are for real at 3-1? I think their defense is for real. I think that.
Yeah. That's a really good question.
I don't know. They're kind of a weird team.
Yeah. They are a weird team, and
I kind of like them personally. I think
we'll find out. I think they're for real. I don't think that 3-1 is going to turn into 10-2 or anything. But I think they're for real, and I think it's very possible that 3 playoff teams come out of that division. It's probably not going to happen, but I don't know what all the intricacies of teams that play each other are, but. The Packers didn't look good at all last week against the Lions. They just didn't look good at all. And the Vikings are struggling. The Vikings beat the Eagles, but who knows with the Vikings. So, I think the Bears have a chance to win that division. I really do.
So you said 3 playoff teams. Who do you think?
Well,
who are you not giving the chance to? The Lions or the Packers?
The Lions. Yeah. I think the Packers with Aaron Rodgers would be the team I pick. Stafford is too up and down. You're just not sure what you're going to get. With 1 week you get 4 touchdowns, the next week you get 3 interceptions.
Right.
And the East is a 1 playoff team, the winner.
Yes, right, winner.
And they'll be the 4th seed because they're going to be like 8-8.
Do you give the Redskins and the Cowboys a chance there, or do you think the Eagles?
Yeah, I think the Eagles are going to win it because the Cowboys are a mess.
Yeah.
They have no receivers. Dak Prescott has regressed to the mean, which we expect him to be. He's a nice quarterback.
He's like an Andy Dalton.
Yeah, he's a nice quarterback, but he's not, and the defense of the Cowboys is not all that great. The Redskins, they got thrashed by the Saints. I'm not saying they were going to win that game, but they basically got dog whipped by the Saints. So, they're not going to win that division. And the Giants we know aren't. So, it's the Eagles.
Yeah. So that I feel like you get 2 out of the North and 2 out of the South playoff teams.
And I would go along with that.
Probably seems about right as of now.
I would go along with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see here going forward, but
let's talk about real quick of the 4 rookie quarterbacks. They're all playing right now, right? One of them, Darnold, started from week 1. Josh Allen almost started from week 1.
Yeah.
I think he came in week 1. Mayfield started a couple weeks ago, and Rosen last week was his first official start. So, of those 4 quarterbacks, which one are you most impressed with at the moment, and which one do you think will ultimately be the better quarterback?
That's a good question.
And I know it's a very small sample size.
Yeah. I'm out on Josh Allen just because I think that maybe he's not getting a totally fair shake, but I think. And the Bills are what? They're 2-3. I just don't think he's going to have the success early on to give him the confidence to go on and do big things in his career. I don't know. I think being drafted by the Bills and kind of being in that weird did they plan on playing him at all, and they had to throw him in there in week 2 because Nathan Peterman's so terrible?
Right.
I think this is not setting up for a great start to his career, and maybe it's not fair, but I don't know. I think that Mayfield, there's something about him. I don't know. I'm not really sold on him either. I think it's going to come down to Darnold or Rosen, and I think that I don't know. Darnold's played more, so I guess I'd say I'm more impressed with him so far. Had the win in week 1. Rosen won last week too against the 49ers, so I'd say it's either of those two, but I'm not really sold on any of them totally. It's not like the class of 2004 with Manning, Eli, and Rivers, where you could tell that they're all going to be pretty good.
Right.
Or even like an Andrew Luck, you knew was going to be good right off the bat. I'm not sold on all of them yet.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. The 2004 thing was interesting, but I'm wondering if we were sitting here now in October of 2004 and we were doing the same thing. Did those guys do anything in their first 4 weeks that would lead us to believe that they were going to be that great? But
I just mentioned Andrew Luck. I felt like he was going to be
from the start.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's a good point. Yeah. I guess if in my view, I'm a little bit different from you. I agree with you on the Baker Mayfield thing. I mean, I don't know the guy. I've never met the guy. He's probably a good kid. But Baker Mayfield, to me, when it comes to quarterback, is the kind of guy that as he's leaving your house, he's got one hand behind his back because he's got something he stole. It's like I don't trust him.
Yeah.
It's something about him that I don't trust, okay? Whether it's that he's going to screw up or he's going to say something or whatever. I just don't know. Josh Rosen, I think he's going to be fine, but I just don't get that feeling that, hey, we're looking at a future great quarterback here. So to me, it's between the other two. And I'm a little more impressed with Josh Allen, really, because he's playing in a cold weather city. He's tough. He's diving and taking on guys. I mean, whether that's smart or not, I think his team is behind him 100%. And I think he was the right pick for Buffalo, given that city. I think he's going to be a really good quarterback. Darnold, I'm not all that impressed with him. I mean, I think he's doing some really good things, but again, there's something about him that doesn't really sit well with me. You know what I mean? I don't know. But I think Darnold and Allen are the two that impress me the most right now. We'll see. It could be Baker Mayfield. He may end up being the greatest of them all. Who knows? But we'll find out. But
all right. So like we said, it should be an interesting rest of the season, obviously. And you have anything else to add before we move on here?
No, I think we've pretty much touched on it.
As we said, let's pause real quick to talk about one of our sponsors, and we'll be back with our producer, Nathan Miranda, to talk about his new YouTube series, Mascots and Monikers.
Hey, I want to take a few minutes here to talk about our sponsors. First, I want to talk about Bonus Room Art. Remember, that's www.bonusroomart.com. Lots of great prints on there. Derek Jeter, Peyton Manning, lots of things on there. New York Rangers goalie. It's just tremendous prints, lots of Jaclay prints. There's a media tab that talks a little bit about some of the things that go into the drawings, some of the pictures of different parts of drawings and how they all kind of come together. But whether you're an art fan or not, if you're a sports fan or if you're a fan of great depictions, go and check it out. www.bonusroomart.com. They're our main sponsor. We appreciate everything they do for the Pressbox podcast. I also want to talk about my blog. That's theoldlinebacker.com. It's a WordPress blog. And remember, you can go to theoldlinebacker.com. You can listen to the podcast on theoldlinebacker.com as well as get it automatically downloaded through iTunes, which you already know about. But every once in a while, I blog about some different topics in the sports world, maybe some musings of how I feel about things, as well as maybe sometimes some inspirational or motivational pieces. So make sure you check those two things out, especially bonusroomart.com. And we appreciate them and we appreciate their involvement with the Pressbox podcast. We're joined now by our producer, Nathan Miranda, and Nathan is into a number of different things, a number of different digital production projects. And one of those is a series titled Mascots and Monikers. And Nathan, tell us a little bit about that. And one, what is it? What is Mascots and Monikers? And two, what was the genesis for starting that project?
Right. So I'll start with the genesis for starting the project. We've talked, you, me, Joseph, we've talked a lot about, well, not a lot, but every once in a while, we talk about it. We'll see a team name, or especially like a unique college name on Saturday or something like that. And we're like, I wonder how they got that name, Like, just recently, I know we talked about the Nittany Lions. Like, what is a Nittany Lion? Is it a real thing? Turns out it's not, but look for maybe an episode about that sometime. Anyways, so then I thought, well, it was your idea. I have to give you the credit. I wanted to do a YouTube show, and I was thinking about my interests for the subjects, and obviously sports is one of them, history is one of them. So you came up with the idea of, well, how about a series that details the stories behind the names of teams, across all sports, professional, collegiate, international, American, whatever. And I thought that was a great idea, and so that's how it started. What's the second question?
The second question is,
what is it?
Yeah, what exactly?
I kind of
did touch on that already.
I touched on that already. So, but I'll go look for it. So basically, it's a short documentary series. Each video, well, they vary depending on the how detailed, how much information is in a backstory of a team name. Some team names, some guy might have just called them the Wildcats in 1902 and it stuck. And some teams like Notre Dame, it's like a gradual, long process that people have to kind of sit with it a while, then they don't like it, then they like it, and then eventually they accept it or whatever.
Right.
So the videos, it's going to depend, but I'll say they're usually probably from, I would say maybe like 4 to 10 minutes. Okay. So it's a short documentary series. Like I said, it details the history behind the names of your favorite sports teams. The slogan or the subtitle, I guess, is what you came up with again, is the mascots and monikers, the stories behind the names of your favorite sports teams.
Right.
So that's what it is.
Okay. Interesting. Mascot obviously being the object that is used to represent the team, and moniker being obviously.
Yeah, I'll go into that a little bit too. Yeah, so as the title insinuates, mascots and monikers. So I touch on both things. So the mascot, as you said, the object, or like the
person or animal,
person, icon, whatever you want to say, that they choose to represent the school, whether it's in logos, dressed up on the field, whatever. And then the moniker is just the name, Fighting Irish, Crimson Tide. So depending on the team, like I said, some teams it's a little different. Like some teams it's pretty obvious. If you're the Bulldogs, their mascot is also just a bulldog.
Right.
But some teams, it's not quite like the Tennessee Volunteers. It's not exactly self-evident what a volunteer is or what they would choose to represent. So teams like that, most likely I'll break up into 2 episodes, like I'll be doing with Tennessee, where one would look at the name, and then one would look at the moniker, one would look at the mascot, which is the blue tick coonhound. But then most teams would fall into the second category, like the Bulldogs, where I'll just combine talking about the mascot and the moniker into one because they go together.
That's more so, I would think, in college too, because let's take the Phillies for example. The Phillies, well, I'm sure their name came from some origin, but then they used the Philly Fanatics just like a green monster.
Right.
So would that be 2 episodes, or would you just focus on the name?
Well, it depends. It would set up like you just described to be 2 episodes, but it depends on the history behind the Philly Fanatic. If there's not much information on it, if it's not that interesting, if it's just some stupid thing some guy thought up, it might not warrant a whole episode. So I might throw it in with the other one. But if there's a long history behind it, and it's interesting history, and it can carry a few minutes, I'll make it its own episode. So it just kind of depends.
And some teams don't even have mascots. Like the New York Yankees, they don't really have a mascot. The Red Sox don't have a mascot.
Yeah. And like in the Philly Fanatics would be a good one to fall into that category, having its own episode, because the Philly Fanatic is a famous mascot. Everybody knows it. Whereas like for an NFL team, for example, like the Buccaneers have some Buccaneer guy that roams the sidelines. But, like, he probably has a name, like, I don't know, Billy the Buccaneer, but, like, no one really knows who he is, and he's a Buccaneer, so that probably wouldn't even have its own episode.
Right.
So you've done 2 episodes already. You have Notre Dame, Fighting Irish, and then the Tennessee Volunteers, which this one's focused more on the name, right?
This is the moniker of it.
So just for real quick, for the people who haven't seen it yet, just describe, I know you said there's a documentary episode, just kind of what the episode entails quickly. It's more voiceover, right, and highlights, things like that. Yeah.
So what it is it's no one's on camera or anything. It's basically like I guess it's kind of like those documentaries, where they show video clips that show photos,
Right.
and you have the voiceover in the background. Now I know a lot of times they'll cut to interviews with people involved, but there's none of that here, right? So Ralph Miranda does the voiceover for the episodes. Great voiceover talent.
Thank you.
And then so then it's videos. Anytime I can, I try to use videos. It's always more dynamic, more engaging than photos.
Right.
But when I do use photos, they're not just still photos slapped up there, and there's not just the kind of the easy or typical kind of slow zoom in or slow zoom out. I try to create kind of a dynamic kind of 3D look to them. I try to do some interesting things to keep it engaging and keep it not. I don't want it to be drag on and be boring. So I try to do some interesting things with movement and keyframes and depth and that type of stuff.
So the people out there listening to this and watching the series, it's not just about the information. There is some production value there to make it exciting too.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's not just about the information. That's the glue that holds it together. So you have to have an interesting story. Everything begins with the story and how interesting it is. And in the writing, I gather the information, I research the team and the name, and then I write the episode. So that's where a good episode is going to begin, is in the writing.
Right.
But yeah, I try to have a good production value to them.
Well, I'm impressed with both of the ones that you have out already. I mean, I think, of course, I'm a knob. I appreciate great production because I don't know what it takes to do it. And it must be a lot of work. To put one of those together with the things you just mentioned, trying to keep the interest of the viewer with the still motion and the movement and the video production. I mean, how much time on average does it take to put a really good one together in your mind?
Again, it depends on how long it would be, but I just pick an average one, the average length. Again, I don't work on it from sun up to sundown.
Right.
Nor do I work on it from 9 to 5.
Right.
I have other projects that I do throughout the day as well.
Right.
But when I'm in an episode working on one, I usually work on it for maybe, I don't know, in the afternoons, maybe 3 hours, something like 3-4 hours maybe max a day. So given that, I would say it takes about 1 to 2 days to research and write the episode. And then probably maybe 2 to 3 days to research and accumulate all the media and the graphics. So that's now we're up to about 4 or 5 days, a work week.
Right.
And then it takes about probably another 5 to 10 to actually put together.
Okay, interesting.
So
and then maybe even a day just for doing all the uploading process.
Right.
Because, or more than a day actually, because the files are so big, and I try to make them as high def as I can, for YouTube. So it takes a long time to export. It takes a long time to import into YouTube.
Right.
And if ever something goes wrong with that, you have to do it again. That's a whole day. So 1 to 2 days for that too.
So just be clear to tell people how they can find this. They go on YouTube, right? It's a YouTube channel. It's called Mascots and Monikers.
YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and you type in, verbatim Mascots and Monikers, that should be the first thing that pops up, because it's the only one that I found that has that name channel.
Right.
Okay.
You click on the channel and you'll see my videos will pop up too.
Right.
But if you type in of course I have tags on them, so theoretically if you type in Notre Dame, Tennessee, University of Notre Dame, Fighting Irish, they're going to be somewhere in that result, in those results, but you're going to have to go so far on the pages right now because it's just beginning to find them.
Right.
You probably just have to type in Mascots and Monikers. That would be the easiest way.
So once you find it, definitely go on there and subscribe when you're on YouTube, and that way you'll get the videos as they get loaded.
Right.
You're also on Instagram, right?
Yes, Mascots and Monikers on Instagram. It's at Mascot Moniker. So when this new episode, post about the episode, post about just little facts from the episode, just short little facts with a photo for Instagram.
And you're on Twitter?
I'm on Twitter again. It's at Mascot Moniker. Same thing. You'll get notifications or posts from both those accounts when there's a new episode uploaded. You'll get 1 or 2 about kind of little facts from the episode. I try to post, if it's for example, a college football team and they're playing a big game on a Saturday, I'll be posting about. I'll make sure to remind people about that. So if you ever miss one and you're looking at your favorite team's trending topics during a game day, you should see it then to remind you.
And your logo is very interesting. I mean, it's kind of a football field with some orange kind of tone to it. So what was the thinking behind the logo and the way you developed it?
Well, the logo that you just referenced right there, a lot of people may not have seen that yet, because the way that works is
You have to go on the computer, right?
Well, YouTube's banner. When you go on a YouTube channel, there's like a photo across the top. It's like I think they call it the banner, YouTube banner. And depending on what format you're viewing it on, mobile device, a computer or laptop, or like an Apple TV, it's gonna be different sizes, right?
I understand.
So you kind of have to make a logo that's optimized for all those sizes. So the one you're discussing, when you see the whole field with it and kind of the stadium lights and everything, that would be for if you go like an Apple TV, because it takes up like the whole screen.
Okay.
And yeah, so the idea, and then the other ones you see both on mobile and a laptop it's kind of like the main thing you see most often. Most people, I would say, use their phone or laptop,
right.
And that's just the stadium. It looks like the top of a stadium, stadium lights, right. And you see Mascots and Monikers in the subtitle there. Below that, the stories behind the names of favorite teams. So the idea behind that was, I didn't want to just put the script logo up there that just says Mascots and Monikers, which we can get into that if you want to. But I didn't want to just put that up there, and I didn't want to put, I don't want to put some type of just like image, some copyright image or something up there. Plus, if it's an image of a team or something, I cover a lot of teams. So I want it to be universal. So I want it to relate to sports, obviously, and So I figured, well, every sport plays in a stadium or some type of arena with lights,
Right.
And of course, I went with more of the football look, obviously, because I'm a football fan first and foremost, and at least in the beginning, especially in the fall right now, most of the ones will be football episodes until we get out of the season. And I like the idea of kind of the simple simple color scheme, just 2 or 3 colors. I like the contrast between the white lights, the background, and that's just...
I also like the little flag or pennant you have, which says, Mascots and Monikers. And it's interesting to me because, we talk about in baseball, a team wins the pennant. Today, most people don't know what that means. When I was growing up, that was it. It was a pennant that said National League Champions.
They won that?
Yeah, and most
would get one.
Yeah, they would get one and they fly it in their stadium.
Oh, I got you.
And also, every team had pennants. I remember in my room when I was a teenager, I had they looked like the size of the ones you have on your logo, pennants, that said New York Yankees, New York Mets, whatever. And today you don't see that much anymore. The word pennant and the actual pennant itself has kind of gone away.
Yeah, I like those too. That's why I wanted to use it. Like what I was coming from, like you said, the pins you buy as a fan.
Right.
When I was growing up, I still have some, in the house. I love those pennants. Like I guess the old classic ones would just have one logo, just say the name, Fighting Irish, and then of course when I was growing up, they had some pretty cool ones, interesting logos and graphics and all this type of stuff. But they were cool, and you don't see that a lot anymore. I remember going to like the store and picking out, they'd have all these teams, and you flip through them and you pick out either your favorite team, the one that looks the coolest colors, and so that's kind of that was my idea behind it. I definitely wanted to include the pennant somehow, and I just kind of put it in the place I did. And then if you notice too, it's on the episode thumbnails, the boxes you click on YouTube. Of course, each one is unique to the episode, but everyone has the pennant in the top left of that too, with the team, the simple one with the team name in it. Right.
No, I think you've done a really good job, and it's beautiful production, well done, and we're looking forward to looking at the 2 that you've already made, as well as any future ones that come out, in the near future. But good work, and we look forward to maybe talking about some of the other projects you have at another date.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good. Thanks. Thanks for having me on. I enjoyed talking about it.
And by the way, Nathan is the guts behind our podcast. I mean, you hear Joseph and I talk sports, which is the easy part, and then we kind of walk away, and Nathan has a few hours of gutting out the production and making sure we sound good and everything goes well and gets on iTunes. So he does a lot of work, and we appreciate all of it. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So we thank you for joining us today. Thank you for joining us today on this 27th episode of the Press Box Podcast. And as always, we'll be back for more, so stay tuned.